Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine, and this is an elderberry herbal infusion, a little hot, by McNulty's, which is a wonderful tea shop in Greenwich Village, New York City. Do visit if you have a chance. It's a beautiful place. Um, and elderberry has obviously elderberry and other herbs, and definitely some bits of apple in here, I think. And it's kind of autumnal, but I think you could drink it all year long, healthy, wonderful benefits, etc. Freddie Mercury representing, sadly, a little bit, because he did die in November of, well, many years ago now, but also he is the subject of many nonfiction books that I read when I was younger, so I thought he could represent Nonfiction November for me a little bit, and that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about my TBR, although when you see it, you're going to say there's no way she could read all of them, and you would be right. It's my Nonfiction November TBR for 2022. Out of this pile, there will be some success, let's hope. So it's very theoretical. Nonfiction November is wonderful. It is an event that Olive at a Book Olive came up with many years ago, well before I'd ever heard of BookTube, and in which I'll put her announcement link below. But basically, it's to encourage people to read more nonfiction. If you read any, then read a little more. If you read none, then read a work of nonfiction. That's pretty great, because I do think that there is so much interesting nonfiction out there, and some people are a little intimidated. Not everyone is, but and that's not a bad thing. It's good to have a healthy respect for books, but I also say give it a shot. Dive in, find something you like. You may be surprised, but it's one of the things that encouraged me actually to get into BookTube, because when I first started watching it, finding channels on BookTube, I found, like many people do, predominantly things like YA, young adult, and it's not a terrible thing, but it wasn't really up my alley, and I felt, oh dear, you know what I mean? Maybe this isn't for me. But then I found many things. I found, of course, channels that talked about classics, and I like that. Channels that talked about mystery books, all kinds of things that I liked. And then, of course, Olive and other channels as well, but especially Olive, because she's kind of like the reigning queen of nonfiction on BookTube, but talking about books that were about nature, about history, about all kinds of subjects, and I thought that was great. And so that definitely was one of the things that encouraged me to spend more time with BookTube and have a channel myself. Yay! So of course I want to participate, and like I said before, please don't think that I intend to read all of these books. It's not going to happen. These are just the ones I would like to choose from, and so hopefully you will see some wrapping up that includes some of these books at the very least. And if I don't read them in November, which some of them obviously I won't, need I keep saying that, I hope to read at some time in the near future. And I mean, judging from how I did with October, I will read some, but I will not, be as thorough as I would like. It's just not enough time in the month, time in the day, even time in the minute. So, however, I decided to include library books and books that I am somewhat currently reading, because I thought I'll probably finish them in November, actually, very likely. So let's just throw this all in the kitchen sink, as it were. Yeah, that's a topical expression right now. But anyway, so I'm going to start with a book that I wanted to start in October, but didn't really get to it. The heat's coming up. That's the clicking, because you like the ambience, right? Anyway, and this is a book that I really hope to start in November, because I've been trying to get to it for years. Last year I read a great biography on the entire Bronte family, and this one, though, is a classic, and it is just so famously mentioned in so many books about biography itself. Biography is one of the types of nonfiction that I'm really into, so I do think it's time. And that is Elizabeth Gaskell's The Life of Charlotte Bronte. So I know it's a little controversial, but in a good way, because a lot to talk about. And I've had this book for so long. I really just want to get to it. And there's very little that can be spoiled for me again, because I only have one book left. Yeah, I did not read The Professor in October. I probably won't read it in November. So, but otherwise, yeah, I probably won't be spoiled. And I think I know it's coming because I've heard it discussed, so I don't mind. I talked about it in October, so I don't need to keep going. Let's see, what else do we have here? This is a book that I got, I think, earlier this year from Blackwell, so it's about time that I got into it. I do love my English history, and one of the most interesting things that happened um, many years ago, in the early days, the Normans, um, the pre-Angevin, the pre-Plantagenets, there was a king, the son of Henry the Conqueror, who was the King of England, and he was the first Henry. He had a son who was his heir. Everything was fine. There was not going to be a succession issue. And then there was this horrible maritime accident that led to his death and many other deaths. And of course, that threw the whole matter of succession into disarray and led to basically sort of a civil war for the next many years to come. Sadly. Well, after Henry died, obviously. But so this book by Charles Spencer discusses that event and how it affected history, obviously. So I would like to read this. The little subtitle is called Conquest, Anarchy, and the Wrecking of Henry I's Dream. It has a couple of little blurbs on top from people that I know. Anthony Horowitz wrote Game of Thrones, but in the real world. And Bill Bryson, as gripping as any thriller. So that sounds pretty promising because it's nonfiction, but it's gripping. So if those of you who are a little nervous about nonfiction being dry and boring, worry no more. Okay, here's a book that I put in here. I don't know if it's the kind of book that you want to read from beginning to end, but I thought I'd even just delve into it a little bit because it is a book I've had for a little while now, and you know, I would just like to read it. It kind of goes along with a lot of the Victorian interest that I have. So that is Floriography by Jessica Rue, and it talks about just the language of flowers, what it meant, and it's just a kind of research guide. Look, you got here open right up to cattails, you know, and its meaning is peace and prosperity, the origin, and what to pair it with. So that's pretty cool. Anything with a pairing makes me happy. So there's that. Here's a book that I've already started and actually made quite a bit of progress in, and so I'm pretty happy to be continuing this book. It is the third, even though I think it's not the third published of this writer. I think there was another book in between, whatever. Sean Bithell is a bookshop owner in Wigtown, which is a book town in Scotland, and much like Hay-on-Wye, I guess. And he's owned this bookshop since I think it was 2001. And in slightly more recent years, he has kept a kind of diary of that year and different transactions, a little bit of the intake of the day, and just who the people he runs into and the things that people say in bookshops. And I find it interesting. So this is the third one, I think, and it's called The Remainders of the Day. Sean Bithell. It's got the cat. I think the name of the cat is Captain, and so far it's been pretty good. I just enjoy it. I enjoy it. I love books about books and books about bookshops. So if that's your thing, then great. Here's a book I bought recently, and I would really like to start it soon. I bought it when I was in Chicago, so kind of a recent haul, and it's a pretty looking cover too. But this is 1,000 Ways to Pay Attention, a memoir of coming home to my neurodivergent mind, Rebecca Schiller. This is a memoir about a person who has ADHD and how it affects her life, which I find very interesting. I find neurodivergence extremely interesting. So I really like the memoirs regarding that, especially because it's not just, oh, here's some case studies and examples. It's really how a person individually has to deal with a situation, and whether it's completely a bad thing for them or it has its benefits, but you got to figure it out, etc. So yeah, 1,000 Ways to Pay Attention. And now it's a little crazy if you see this TBR when you realize that I have 3, I think, author biographies in here, which seems like it might be confusing, but I still want to give it a shot. And this is the writer that I really want to know more about, especially because I did talk about him during October, and I really want to learn more, not just about his writings, but about his life, or as much as we can know about it. I have two biographies, I think, of him. This is the one I chose because I know my sister has this too, so if she ever gets to pick it up, which sometimes she ends up reading quicker than I do, so it's possible, then at least it's not a buddy read, but at least it's a thing that we can talk about together, and I like that. So this is, ooh, it's heavy. It is heavy. This is Trollope, a biography by M. John Hall, and yeah, that's what it says. It's a biography of Anthony Trollope, and I just love Anthony Trollope, and I just want to know a little bit more about his life. I've read more about other authors, and I enjoy him more than many other authors. So hello. So yes, and now this cover is a bit much, but I don't know if people object to certain covers, so I will take. I will censor for your protection because I do not have a way to digitally censor it. And we have here. There we go. I think I already showed it on this channel anyway, so I don't know why I'm censoring it now. Pre-Raphaelites in Love by Gay Daly. So I just thought I'd be, for the kids. Not that I expect kids to watch my channel, but this is a book about, well, basically that. A little bit about Pre-Raphaelites and their relationships. I started the introduction or the prologue, and seems like something I could get into. I've been reading about Pre-Raphaelites. Pre-Raphaelites, hard word for me to say, even though I like it. I've been reading about them for years. I find the whole movement fascinating, especially because there's so much that is involved with it that isn't technically considered Pre-Raphaelite art, but still is lumped in there, and all that stuff is interesting too. And everybody who was involved, the artists themselves, the writers that they worked with too. Some of them were writers themselves, poets, especially, and of course the models who had lives of their own and hopes of their own. Some of them were, hoping to be artists themselves. So I do not cease being interested in this group, so I'm going to try to read this book soon, and sure I'll like it. Another bit of a big book, and that's the problem, is that I have so many books that are a bit sizable in this group, which of course makes it harder for me to read all of it in 1 month, but it also makes it harder for me to tote. And I know what people say, digital, okay. I have these books in non-digital form, and I like them, but I'm not at home as much as I used to be. Not that I want to go back to the whole pandemic things, everything shut down, but, excuse me, whistling nose. But I don't, but it's kind of sad that I don't have that as much of a luxury to read all the chonkers, all the doorstops. But anyway, have I done the library books yet? No, I don't think so. I think these are all the library books that I'm going to show you now. And this one, I don't know if I'm going to get to, but I just liked the name of it, and I liked the description, and one can only hope to get to it. If not, I will end up returning it to the library, but it's kind of a cute volume, actually, which isn't the only reason to read things, but this is called Rebel with a Clause. That picture? Yay. Tales and Tips from a Roving Grammarian by Ellen Joven. I could always use more help with grammar, although I don't think my grammar is horrific. I also think it's not expert. So it would be cool to read this, but I don't know if I'm going to get to it. We'll see. Here's a book that I saw when I was in a bookshop in London, and I did the thing where I said, if I could find it in the library in New York, then I'm going to put it on hold there and not buy it here, because I cannot buy everything. So I did that, and it showed up at the library right away, and I don't like the cover, the wrapping of it, but, and I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to read it, but it's a subject that I love, which is reading about tea, and this is a heavy book too. It's A Thirst for Empire. A Thirst for Empire, How Tea Shaped the Modern World, by Erica Rappaport. And I actually know a lot about tea history and how it actually did nearly create empires, or at least contribute to the power of the empires in some way or another, or the decline of certain groups too. And yes, the way we live now, to borrow from Anthony Trollope, has a little bit to do with tea and the purchasing of tea and the growing of tea and and whatever went behind that. It influenced politics, for goodness sake. So that is, I think it's already self-explanatory, the title, so I don't need to keep going, but I love reading about tea. I have a lot of other books about tea in my possession that I've read most of, but if I could get to this, it would be very nice. If not, moving on. So this one I'm definitely getting to. I've already made progress in, and I'm already enjoying quite a lot. Another author biography. But this one was a long anticipated one and is about a person that I have read biographies about. In fact, I read a biography last November. I think I finished it in December, but nevertheless, this is Agatha Christie, An Elusive Woman by Lucy Worsley. Yes, that Lucy Worsley. I think in the UK it's called A Very Elusive Woman or something like that. I don't know why they changed it in the United States, but okay. This book promises to talk a little bit more about the disappearance of Agatha Christie that in December of 1926 or 27, I forget now. But either way, so we'll see if the theories and the thoughts shared there are feasible. I find that curious. Last but certainly not least, this is probably the heaviest of all the books, and this is a book I've been trying to get to. Well, not trying to get to. I've been waiting for it to get to the library, and now I can't renew it. But maybe I will in the future, because sometimes you can't renew it, and then you can a week later. So I'll keep trying, but I got to really start it now. And this is a book by Sarah Cedar Miller, and oof, I can hold it up without breaking my wrist. Before Central Park. So Central Park is one of my favorite destinations in New York City and anywhere. And I think if I ever moved out of New York, that would be one of the things I would miss the most. Yeah, it would be, because it's just a cool place. I always tell people, is it the best park in the world? Probably not, but it's a really well done design, and it's fun. I always get lost trying to. Always, years of navigating Central Park, I always get lost, or almost always get lost trying to find my way. I have no sense of direction though, so don't go by what I say. But I also know that Central Park, the land there, belonged to a number of different people, and different people also had lived there and had homes there and were evicted. That probably unfairly in many circumstances. And so it's kind of like, I'm going to compare Central Park with tea. I love my tea, and I'm talking right now about actual tea. This is herbal tea. I love it so much. I'm going to have another sip. Yes, I do. But actual tea, black tea, green tea, white tea. Keep slapping my leg. No one needs to hear that. Anyway, all of these teas come from a certain tea leaf, and in order for us to sit down and enjoy that cup, if we enjoy it, there was a lot of people who had to work very hard and be sometimes exploited over the centuries. And like I was saying before, with a thirst for, was it Thirst for Empire, I think it was called? Something like that. I gotta look again. Yep, Thirst for Empire. And so you say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to be guilted out of enjoying my tea, but I will have a healthy appreciation for it, knowing what I know about its origins, basically. And I feel the same way about Central Park. I'm not going to refuse to go to Central Park because, well, people who lived there, were evicted, and, their home was taken away from them. Of course it was. Almost everywhere you live, someone's home was taken away from them and given to someone else, or given us in some other form. And I'm not saying that was right when it happened. And, of course, the people at the time, most of them did not think it was fair, I'm pretty sure. So I like to have a healthy respect for, those that came before, but I also still want to enjoy going there without feeling like terribly guilty for having a nice day feeding ducks. or whatever I do when I go to Central Park. I went there the other day and got to see people taking pictures for, wedding, and the man had a kilt, which I always love seeing, and the woman had, regular bridal dress, but it was so autumnally, you know, foliaged the ground, everywhere. When she was walking, her train like trailed a bunch of leaves, and normally it sounds kind of like dirty, all these leaves crunching, whatever, but it kind of looked cool. Anyway, so there's always something interesting whenever I go to Central Park to see or observe or whatever. Anyway, so those are the books that I hope to get to, at least some of them, in Nonfiction November, and I hope that you've enjoyed this TBR, theoretical TBR. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if you would really recommend any of these books or not, or which ones you'd like to see me read, because I could always use the help and the encouragement. If you like talking about books like these, feel free to subscribe, like all the things that you could do with one's videos and channels, etc. And that is all for now. This is Catherine at Taking Tea with Catherine. Have a lovely tea and book-filled day. Bye.